So we all know that Injustice Gods Among Us as a video game actually deals with quite a bit of universal or different Earth-like travel, and that's kind of like the main focal point at the very beginning of the story. I mean, a lot of these people or these Justice League members get sent to the pseudo-Injustice universe to help Injustice Batman. We know that Injustice Batman needs a lot of things from the Batcave, and mainly a way to stop Superman, and the main way to do that is to utilize the Justice League's DNA to actually get the weapon that is needed to incapacitate Superman and basically stop the entirety of the regime. But since we are dealing with universal-like travel, why not bring somebody that's not even in the DC universe into Injustice Gods Among Us? So that's why today we're going to be diving into the idea, or a what if Spider-Man was in Injustice Gods Among Us, or if he could survive in Injustice Gods Among Us. Now I want to start right off that this is our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and Spider-Man always has shown insane potential even beyond just his fighting skills. I mean, he shows insane mobility, super strength, and very, very good combat with, well, his Spidey sense. His Spidey sense is something that is giant in all of his fights, and I'm gonna be honest, his ability to more or less move all around really quickly or do reconnaissance is something that is very big and going to come into play in this Injustice Gods Among Us. But how would he truly do in this universe? In the Injustice universe, or more specifically, the Injustice Gods Among Us universe, how would he fare against some of these villains, and how would he even fit in, especially dealing with the insurgency? Well, at the very start, it would begin with Spider-Man just swinging through his normal city, being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man we all know and love. But eventually, he would get teleported into the universe by Injustice Batman. But of course, we don't know if this was on purpose or on accident at the end of the day, so Spider-Man himself is kind of in disarray, just in terms of where he is, where he's been sent to, but it is obvious that this place needs some sort of help. He doesn't know what help, but it definitely needs some help. Peter would do his best to look around and get a grasp on what is happening, but he can't really learn much, and after seeing how many odd-looking soldiers scour the area, he would decide to kind of lay low. I mean, there's no point of rushing things, especially when you get sent to an unknown place and an area that you have no idea what's going on in, so he decides to lay low and utilize his own abilities to kind of stealthily kind of look around and survey his area, you could say. That's until his Spidey sense would begin to go off, but it seems to be reacting to danger that is close and not danger that is, well, right in front of him. So he decides to swing to another building to see two people fighting each other, but for some reason they look exactly the same, outside of the fact that one is yellow and the other is green. He has no idea what's going on, but he assumes these are super-powered beings, especially from what they are capable of doing. Peter would swing down, webbing them both up, and frankly, the main reason why he would be able to web them both up so easily is because they're completely caught off guard. Remember, there's really nobody like Spider-Man necessarily in this universe at the moment, so they're not expecting anybody to even just show up, and he just kind of pops out of nowhere, so he just out of nowhere just surprises them and kind of subdues them, at least momentarily. But immediately after this, he would be shot at by an arrow, but luckily enough, Spider-Man would be able to dodge this arrow because, well, of his spider sense, and no arrow's going to hit him, I'm gonna be honest. But Yellow Lantern Hal Jordan, on the other hand, would be knocked out entirely by Diana, at least for the meantime. Peter would be very confused because he webbed them both up because he didn't know who was good, who was bad, or what even was going on. So he just knew that they were fighting and had to stop the conflict initially. So he would kind of keep his distance until he asks some questions and learns that they randomly arrived here as well, just like him. Because he would explain that he definitely doesn't belong here, that he wasn't supposed to be here, and that he doesn't even know any of these people. He begins to bring up different people from his universe, people like Iron Man, maybe Thor, the Hulk, maybe Captain Marvel, in which they would say that last one sounds familiar, but not necessarily involving them, because that's not what they call him anymore. That's kind of don't worry about that one. But he is massively cautious of them, but so is Hal, Ollie, and Diana of him. I mean, they don't know who he is either. He could flat out be a spy, an agent to kind of kill them, could be anything. But they decide to kind of join together for the meantime, believing that they could bring him along, and there's no way that he is going to be able to defeat all three of them, at least not at once. So they would eventually run into this world's Batman, or the Injustice Batman, who explains that he actually brought them here to basically help, but bringing this spider guy was not on purpose. So that would kind of tell you exactly what's going on. Batman does confirm, though, that he is from a different world, or that this Spider-Man is from a different world, and since the mistake of bringing him here, he actually has been gathering information on who he is and deems that he is remotely trusted, or at least useful in some sort of way. Now, this does reassure the Justice League, or people like Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Green Arrow, and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, Spider-Man doesn't know if he can actually trust them, because, I mean, come on, he just was told that he got sucked into this universe off of his own free will, and he didn't ask for this. I mean, why is he even here? He doesn't even know who these people are, and they don't even know any of the heroes that he knows back in his actual universe, in which Batman would explain that is definitely the case, but he doesn't actually know that much information about these other heroes, mainly because he didn't have enough time to even research that deep within basically that universe. Now, I want to make this clear. Batman himself, and this is my little tidbit for this kind of story, Batman himself doesn't know or hasn't perfectly made his way into universal travel or different Earth travel. Now, the way this would be that Batman doesn't have enough time to iron out every single kink of this universal travel. If he did try to do that, he would eventually run out of time, and Superman would probably end up killing them all. So he decided that this was worth the risk, and that he would bring over this Justice League, and unfortunately, this was just a small casualty in bringing them over, in terms of bringing over this Spider-Man. So this Spider-Man hearing this, or Peter hearing this, would not necessarily be happy, but he would be offered, on this other hand, that he could decide to be reconnaissance, you could say. More or less just go out and find out what's going on the outside, keep his distance from the Justice League and this Batman, and even Batman would understand that there is no reason for Peter, which obviously he doesn't know who Peter is, but for Peter or Spider-Man to truly trust them. Like, why would he trust them, at all? So he does go out and do what I think is one of his best skills, and that is reconnaissance. I think that Spider-Man himself is really, really good at something like this, and gathering information, especially for the insurgency, even if at this moment he doesn't fully trust them. It would benefit him and also the insurgency themselves to gather some information about certain heroes, villains, and certain people in general that are around the area or nearby that they need to be worrying about. And this would put Spider-Man actually in the position that he would possibly want to be in. Now, this sounds weird, but it is kind of true. Because eventually he would stumble across a defeated Batman who looks mildly similar to the one he literally just met, in terms of just, the whole suit, but the other one looked a little bit more muscular, but that's a little beyond the point. Spider-Man would realize that this is kind of that person that they were talking about, and also that the stories would basically connect perfectly. So this would give him a little bit more trust in not only this Batman, but also the other Batman and the other so-called Justice Leaguers, he could say. Now, he would see that this Batman is defeated by this clown of some sorts, but luckily enough, he's able to web up the clown and ward him off. The clown would run away and kind of scamper off laughing, which would be very unsettling for Spider-Man, and the clown would obviously not know who Spider-Man is, thinking that it's just casualty of this new universe or different Earth. But soon, two more people would show up as well. That would be Hawkgirl and Yellow Lantern Hal Jordan once again. Now, this is the first action that Spider-Man would see in a fight, but I want to make this very clear. Then there's a reason why I talked about it being what if Spider-Man was in Injustice Gods Among Us, and also could he survive it? Because he's not facing every single person, especially on his own, because in my opinion, and probably most of y'all's as well, is that Spider-Man would not stand a chance if he had to take on the entirety of the regime by himself. I mean, that's illogical, especially because the insurgency had so much help as well. But that's kind of beyond the point, at least at this moment, because they're going to be taking on Hawkgirl and Yellow Lantern Hal Jordan. Batman himself actually does seem to devalue Hawkgirl in terms of being a giant challenge. He basically tells Hawkgirl that there's no way she is taking him in. Not sure if this is because he completely outclasses Hawkgirl, at least on his Earth, or that he straight up just thinks that a one-on-one fight with anybody just wouldn't stand a chance. Because eventually, in the original timeline, he'd get punched and knocked out by Yellow Lantern Hal Jordan, but in this regard, it would be an even 2-on-2. So if we take Batman's word to basically as fact, it seems that Hawkgirl herself is not a challenge with or against Batman. And now with Batman's insight on fighting styles, especially against someone like a Yellow Lantern Hal Jordan, and Spider-Man's spidey sense, I could see this fight going heavily in the favor of Batman and Spider-Man. Especially because I could see this Batman, like I said, outclassing someone like Hawkgirl based on just the words he said. And on top of that, Spider-Man has had a run-in with Yellow Lantern Hal Jordan, and yes, that you might say that this does put Hal Jordan a little bit on kind of the more aware side, but I'm gonna be honest, he still does not know what Spider-Man truly has in store. He could utilize various different types of webbing, could utilize his spidey sense to dodge anything that really shows up in front of him, even though these figments are extremely powerful in themselves. But having Batman on his side and having Batman basically make the shot calls and have him more or less fight in sync with Batman, which some of you might think, oh, that's no way that he can fight in sync with Batman. But his spidey sense would allow him to do exactly that. Being able to dodge naturally, especially against certain attacks that maybe will catch him off guard, would allow him to fight in sync with a Batman that already knows the fighting styles of Hal Jordan and also Hawkgirl herself. So this would put them both at a massive advantage, changing one of the courses of events by saving Earth Prime Batman far sooner from basically when he ever got captured in the first place, or when he ever got found initially and brought back in the first place. Because normally later in the story, that's when we actually bring this version of Batman back, because he would get captured by both Hawkgirl and Hal Jordan. But this time around, that's not the case, and he would be saved a lot sooner. So with this said, we are dealing with a way faster timeline now. Yes, we still have to get the plans for the weapon, for the kryptonite weapon, and so on. But Spider-Man himself most likely wouldn't be involved, at least not in a lot of these things, until the final fight. Now, I'm not going to just say that he's not going to be involved literally at all, because I feel like he might have a mission or two here and there. So I would probably throw him in with the aid in capturing the Joker, and maybe he is a part of the crew in terms of trying to go into the Batcave and get the plans that are needed with the DNA of the other Justice Leaguers. Now, some of the people that he would most likely have to fight during this time, first off, starts with someone like Solomon Grundy and also Killer Frost. But these type of fights aren't insanely balanced for Spider-Man, just because we are dealing with two villains that were defeated by Green Arrow. Yes, I know, with the kryptonite pill, but Spider-Man would just be more or less helpful. Spider-Man wouldn't be on the front lines taking on the strongest beings possible during this time, but he would be extremely helpful in the fight. And it's the same kind of idea when we're dealing with the fight of Wonder Woman and Black Adam in the Batcave. Now, I'm gonna be honest, Spider-Man being in the insurgency, I will say, benefits the insurgency massively, and I already brought up exactly why. I truly believe that this version of Spider-Man would eventually come across Earth Prime Batman, saving him far earlier, jumping and also cutting out an entire plot point out of Injustice Gods Among Us, probably putting them in a scenario where they can actually bring Superman into the fray a lot sooner. And by the Superman I'm talking about, I mean the Superman from Earth Prime. So now this would lead them to the final battle a lot sooner than normal. Now, with Spider-Man actually being here, how much does the final battle change when they already won? I agree. It doesn't change that much. But I'm more here to talk about how Spider-Man can truly affect certain plot points, especially in Injustice Gods Among Us, because of the capabilities that he shows. Especially in this final battle, yes, technically they would already have won, and they already are going to win even without him. But Spider-Man's ability to web up certain people and his ability to actually capture people helps massively in restricting enemies that maybe are going to get back up, or enemies that would have gotten back up but now can't because now they're completely webbed to a surface that they can't get out of. Now, on top of that, we could even talk about Batman giving Spider-Man actual technology or tech that could benefit him even more. We know Batman has some insane tech and could do maybe a couple upgrades to Spider-Man's web shooters. Shoot, maybe even Batman can learn something from Spider-Man. I know maybe some of you hardcore Batman fanatics would be like, there's no way that this kid could teach him anything, but don't ignore the fact that Spider-Man, or Peter Parker, is a brilliant scientist, and he understands a lot about chemistry and a ton of science. I mean, he literally was able to make his own web fluid, and he's done quite a bit on his own, especially as a solo superhero, even without having a ton of money like a Bruce Wayne. Now, with all that said, this could make Spider-Man even better for the final fight. We're talking about more advanced web shooters, maybe more like technical gadgets that he can utilize. Maybe even think of it more like an Insomniac Spider-Man who has countless amounts of different technology that he could actually utilize in this brand new scenario. Actually, fun fact, I was going to make this originally Insomniac Spider-Man, but decided against it and go more broad and actually just talk about Spider-Man in general, but that really wouldn't change that much to the story and what I'm breaking down anyways. But being able to meet up with this version of Batman and gaining more and more technology, especially since they're both going to trust each other to a large extent, at least now, they will definitely see a large benefit and how fast they can actually take down the regime in the final battle when they go head to head with the regime itself, with Earth Prime Superman on their side. Now, with all that said, that leads to the very end and the very end of the battle, where Spider-Man is finally cleaned up and helped out and has stopped now, or officially has stopped the regime and helped out stop the regime. But As always, we know that there's far more to this story of injustice, and we know that there's so much more to happen even after Superman gets stuck in a Red Sun prison. So imagine this. Spider-Man, the one we're talking about now, the one that would shake hands with Injustice Batman and would be sent away. What if we brought him back and put him against Injustice 2? Putting him in this different universe where Brainiac is invading and people are crying and wanting help from any hero they can possibly see. What kind of change would Spider-Man bring to that story? Well, that's not something we're going to be talking about today, because this is the end of What If Spider-Man Was in Injustice Gods Among Us. But if you want to see me do What If Spider-Man Was in Injustice 2, or could Spider-Man survive Injustice 2, let me know in the comment section below. Make sure to show some love to the video, leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below. Like I said, all that good stuff. And as always, this video right here you're seeing, YouTube thinks you'll enjoy it, so you might as well click on it and see if YouTube is right. Later.